Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education and resources. But the SJ Child Show isn't just about me, it's about us as a community. Join me as we help educate and support our community, help bring kindness and love and inclusion to all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I really appreciate all the support from all of the viewers and listeners, and I just want to let you know I want you to join me on this journey. Come and follow my social media, and let's do this together. Enjoy the show. Introducing Autism Vehicle Home Safety Kits, Emergency Responder, alert stickers, personal profiles with autism needs and a communication board, masks and earplugs, keeping families and emergency responders educated and safe. Get yours today at sjchilds.org. Helping autism families impact their child's developmental milestones through home relocation, community resources, and home designs. For every 3 homes Natalie Castro sells, she funds and designs a sensory room for a community center servicing individuals with autism. She volunteers to coach law enforcement, first responders, and ER nurses how to have a positive experience for individuals on the autism spectrum. Hi, welcome to the SJ Childs Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today I have a really fun guest. I'm excited to talk about the services, her background, kind of find out more about her. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Dina. Dina Farmer, that's correct? I can't mess that up too bad.
Well, that is correct. I am Dina Farmer, and I'm the owner of Magnolia Travel. I'm a full service travel agency, but a one-woman show. And I help families and families with autistic kids travel the world. And it's definitely a personal passion project for myself because my oldest son has been diagnosed with autism, and I am now officially entering the journey and trying to see if my youngest son might be on the spectrum as well. So very, very personal to me about my business.
Isn't that so true? And just like you had said, we oftentimes find ourselves as parents and learning about our child, and then we kind of can take a look at the rest of our family. And for me, you and I haven't spoke before or anything, but for me, I found out 6 years later that my husband was on the spectrum, which then evolved into both of our daughters. One's 22 and one is 10. And so to see just the different levels and support and, intelligent, like brilliance that evolves within my home. And it's so fascinating. And you really I love that I can kind of give people a new perspective, of what it looks like to see autism as a beautiful thing and see the successes that can come of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like once you kind of start on that journey, it's kind of amazing to see like, okay, well, first it's the overwhelming thing of like, okay, now my child has this hidden disability, like what am I going to do? And then taking those next steps, but then seeing that they're still the same person before and after diagnosis. Like the only thing it does is just helps you get services you need to support them. But like, my oldest son is like very creative, and he's such a kind and giving little boy. It's just really amazing, and like makes me like, I'm so glad that you picked me to be your mom, know?
Yeah, no, I think that is so incredible. And the fact that you can see those things in him and see that, his compassion and those things obviously is telling of you as a good mother, because you're showing him the example of how to be doing that. And because it just doesn't happen. Like we really teach our kids from the very beginning what kind of relationship we want to have with them. looks like our internet just froze up for 1 second, but that is not a problem. We will continue with our conversation as soon as it clears up. So, yeah, so it's just so important that we, see our kids for who they are to be able to give them the best support possible.
I completely agree. And I feel like, I don't know, like once that diagnosis gets offered, well, I don't want to say offered, but like once it happens, it just feels like it's like, okay, now I can move on to the next step. And I don't feel as overwhelmed because now I know what I'm working with, as opposed to all those questions of, am I like a terrible parent? Like, obviously I'm doing a horrible job because I can't address these behaviors and I don't know how to support him. I'm sorry.
Furthest from the truth, though. Absolutely. Right. Because you really are doing all you can. And really, you're coming with all that you have from your childhood and from how you were parented. And so as with more than one child, I was fortunate, I guess, and bless my stepdaughter's heart, but to have raised, a child from 5, she's 22 now. And so I've raised an adult, and I see all the error that I brought with me in maybe the things I wouldn't have wanted to have parented like. And now I am like, okay, I'm sorry, stepdaughter. We've had that conversation, and she's very understanding that, like I just said, we came with what we had, with what we knew was, and thought we were doing the best. Now we realize maybe things can be done a little bit better, and we can make things a little bit easier the next time around, and the next time around again.
Or give room for, like, I mean, even, my boys are, well, my oldest is the same age as your youngest. And I have my youngest is 4, but even being able to look at what we're doing now as parents, period, like where our children are now, and being able to go, whoa, okay, that was definitely not my best. And then trying, because I personally see a therapist and I talk to her a lot about like my parenting and like how can I be my best every day, and what is my baseline for what is my best, and just working with her to, like, I didn't like what I did there. Like, so how could I do that better? Or like, how can I work with my children so that the next time this XYZ situation comes up or whatever, like I can be a better parent every day, because I can only do my best.
Yeah.
But we don't know what we don't know. Right.
Yeah.
So
when we know, we can do better. That is It's such a great saying. And that is just so much the truth. And I love that you said something so important, because getting care for yourself, having that therapy for yourself is so important. And I, don't go out of the house. I am super lucky to have a husband who went through so much therapy. He therapies everyone now. He's a experienced gained therapist, right? No, I'm just kidding. But
right.
Yeah, he really like has this logical way of looking at things outside of emotions, which is what they teach you to do. And so we're able to, work on things like that with one another. But there, of course, there's times when I need to reach out to other people in my community and have, moms to talk to that are understanding and professionals. And so it's so important. And the thing that you do is such a unique niche, because there's not how many autism, travel agents have you ever encountered, right? And so I think it's so special, and I really want to showcase that. And tell us about like how it started, what kind of got you to decide this is what I'm going to do with this travel agency.
Right. So we are a military family. Sarah and I were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but and she understands, because, she grew up in a military family too. So like our moves are not by choice.
Right.
Right. So we move because the military tells us to move. And I started to notice something as young as 18 months, that my son had some Oh no, did I freeze again?
Nope, you're fine.
Okay. I started to notice some differences with my older son. And especially because he was an only child for 6 years, so he didn't really, there was nothing for me to baseline
Yeah.
his development or growth off of. So there was things I was like, I don't know, but we'll just keep going along with it. And it wasn't until we got stationed in Hawaii and my youngest son was born that I started to notice, like, developmentally, they were developed, they both developed differently.
Yeah.
And I wanted to own kids because we've been in the military for so long, and you kind of get that bug about the travel bug. And I just woke up one day when it was just this really excessive toe walking that he was doing. And I just said, I just really have questions about this, and I really want someone to answer them for me. So I went and got him diagnosed, or like getting help with the toe walking. And from the toe walking, that progressed into getting a autism diagnosis. But like, I kept asking developmentalists, like, how can I make our travels easier? Because he seems to struggle a little bit with them. And like, there's nothing to help us while we're out on the road, And I just felt like, gosh, like I must be, again, a really bad mom, or, something's like the matter with me. But I know it's not my fault, and it's not his fault either. The behaviors, it's just that he's simply had sensory issues, and he couldn't really communicate to me what they were. And it wasn't until we started unlocking everything through therapies that I was like, oh my gosh, okay, now I understand. Now that I understand how to better support him, the pandemic happened.
Right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I had just opened my travel business 2 years prior to the pandemic. And right before the pandemic happened, I decided to change my business from just selling Disney trips to selling trips to families with autistic kids. And then the world shut down. But at that same time, it was a great opportunity for me, I think, to have a very undivided audience that could hear my message, instead of being like, okay, here's all these other travel advisors and, they're talking about all this other stuff. It was just like, I have all this time to talk about like how it's possible to travel with your child, regardless of where they are on the spectrum, if we work together, because I don't know your child, but if we can talk about like what they need and how you and I can best support them. Of course, I can't be on ground with you, and I'd love to be, but I can't. Excuse me. Just being able to reach out to families and finding out like what their needs are and how I can best accommodate them is like where it kind of gradually started. And it's slowly building up momentum as like the world is opening back up again.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? It's probably, thank goodness, getting a little bit busier for you. And so do you help because it's all online, obviously.
Right.
So are you able to help anyone from any area then? Just travel anywhere?
Anywhere. I can, of course, work with citizens outside the U.S., but the bulk majority of my clients are U.S. citizens. And I can help them go anywhere they want to in the world. But generally speaking, what I've been doing lately is almost completely booking families to resorts that are autism certified as an autism center, or at least they have some kind of autism program, like Beaches does, I know, and like Royal Caribbean, for example, on their ships, they have an autism program. But I think that the families that I'm working with have become more comfortable. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Real life.
The families that I'm working with have been more comfortable with the idea that they would rather spend their dollars with suppliers and tourism operators that are actually making programs for them.
Yes, definitely.
Which I love.
I know. And how cool that you can be kind of in that seat to see that those things are available, because we've traveled locally and maybe driven a couple places outside of states, but we've never flown. We've never, addressed what that might look like. We've never, and our son wants to go to Japan. That is his big dream. And
Yeah.
he studies Japanese and everything Japan. And so someday we're going to have a chat. but even just the thought of how could we accommodate, him in all of those areas, it would be so neat to have somebody who had the experience to know who to connect you with when you got there and things. So what a fascinating service to provide.
Right. It's like, I don't know if they're going to go or not.
All good. All good.
Yeah. It's true. And I feel like it's such a big challenge. I mean, it's an interesting challenge because I feel like a lot of American tourism suppliers are the ones that are like being very accommodating and more open to the idea of autism travel. And like slowly, I feel like it's like a snowball process, right? Like as tourism suppliers in the States are getting more accommodating, it's starting to trickle to other, snowball to other countries. Like Japan is easily accessible, like not wheelchair friendly by any means, but it's, for family. Yeah. Unfortunately, I know there's some challenges for sure in Japan as far as that goes, but
yeah.
I know that like we were stationed there for like 6 years.
Hey,
yeah,
good time to come visit then.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it's like, it can be done even if there isn't like hotels or suppliers that have accommodations. And I feel like, especially when I have someone that's going overseas, it's always like a phone call or an email that I can make for the family to just say, hey, the child has autism. Is there any way that you can accommodate like X, Y, and Z, or, something like that? And as long as they know, generally speaking, I feel like a lot of suppliers are super duper accommodating in reason. That.
And I think that really also puts a lot of the responsibility on the parents to really bring you the right information. What do these children need? What kind of process, do they need a dim place next to a window instead of a bunch of lighting, like natural light? Do they need, a pool that's close by so that they can sensory, get rid of a lot of sensory needs and things like that. So that's really interesting. What are some tips that you give families to prepare to go on a vacation?
So I feel one of the biggest tips I always say is work with your child's therapist if you're in therapy. Because they're so great. Like my son's had some really phenomenal therapists. I think my youngest son is coming outside.
Family first.
I know. Yep. And so like, for example, his occupational therapist has like modeled, what it's going to be like to sleep in a hotel, or like what is expected, when you're going to get on an airplane, or just, simply like what a theme park might, what might you encounter at a theme park kind of situation. And I love that the therapist is able to use what the family is asking them to do and then model and prime the child so that they're ready to travel. And it's not a lot less scary with like social stories or whatever they, however they choose to do that. And then I personally, sometimes my son is like, oh, surprise, like we're going to Universal. And I asked him, oops, sorry, buddy. I asked him, hey, do you want to go to Universal and it be a surprise? Or do you want to know what it's going to look like when we get there?
Yeah.
Just surprise me this time. But there's been other times where he wants to know. And then the beauty of YouTube is that there's so many travel influencers and bloggers out there that have gone to some of the resorts that we go to. And I just show him point of views of like, okay, well, this is what the hotel's going to look like, or this is what the ride is going to look like at Disney World, or, whatever. Yeah. And I like to always encourage any of the clients that I worked with is to work with your child's therapist, and then to share POVs of what the location is that you're going to visit. Oh, and a third one is involving your child in the planning process.
Yes.
If they're able to do that, of course.
Sure.
Thank you. And that's going to be anywhere from like, if your child, like my son he wants to go to New York City, and like he has picked out like where we're going to go, and like what's like we're going to go to the Statue of Liberty. We have to go to the Empire State Building. And those are all things that like makes him feel invested in our vacation. And of course, I know that like, depending on where your child is at in the spectrum, that might be something that doesn't apply to you. And I fully understand that. Sure. But, for the most part, those are the big three, or the three biggest tips.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always offer.
What about, and I'm sure that you'll get a lot of, what kind of recommendations can hotels make for children, maybe with sleep issues, to help accommodate not only the child, but the other guests?
So I think it's just really reaching out to the hotels and talking to them. But maybe if your child has, like, they can't sleep if it's too loud, for example, requesting, it's not always guaranteed, unfortunately, but requesting a room that's on a quieter side of a hotel that maybe has a lot fewer guests that are there. That could definitely be something to look into. You can request, like, if your hotel is, and I know with the pandemic, there's so many things that are still not quite back. Some hotels will like have a turn down service, and you can request like to get the sheets tucked in tighter, especially if your child has some sensory things going on, and or there's some hotels that even provide weighted blankets that could make it easier for your child to sleep at night. And that's just a simple phone call to be able to get that accommodation. But really, again, it's like asking for what you need and seeing if the hotel is able to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We really need to know what our kids' needs are so that we can make those accommodations appropriate for them, and make the phone calls necessary. Or like, for instance, having someone like you make the phone calls to the hotels, or to the, the centers that you're going to visit. That's so important. And do you have like, because you've been in it for a couple years now, I'm sure you've made connections along the way in some of these places to be able to call and say, hey, this is Dina, I need this or that. And they've now know who you are and are probably more able to accommodate more clients.
Yes, which I totally 100% love. And for example, there was, you don't know what you don't know, and you learn stuff along the way. And one of my clients just came back from a vacation in Cancun, and she recently changed her son's sleep medication. And we didn't know that the sleep medication can cause a sun allergy. So it's just like a really quick phone call on my behalf to the resort's physician to be like, can we really get this kiddo looked at to make sure that he, like we don't want anything bad to happen, or like, do we need to go to the ER or something? And it's just, developing those relationships with suppliers so that I can feel confident, and hopefully my clients feel confident as well that I've got their backs,
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, with examples like that, it's 100% that you do. And for someone to even feel the necessary to guide families into this much more of an ease of travel is so just so wonderful. There was another word, but right? But it's really amazing. And I think that there's not enough knowledge of what you're providing. So I'm so glad that we could have you on today to give people an idea of what that they can have available to them when they ask for what they need. Yes. Absolutely. So do you have a website or somewhere we can send people to get all of this fantastic information?
Yes. You can find me at www.lilyandmagnoliatravel.com, and that's LILY, not 3 L's.
Yeah.
And then it's at Lily and Magnolia Travel on Facebook and Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel, but it's just not like, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Right. Oh, it all
Yeah.
takes growth. Believe me.
Yeah.
Me too. Me too. It all takes growth and time and work and effort and
Yes.
all the good stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'll make sure to have all of that up on the screen and down in the description box. So nobody will need to worry about how to find you. We'll make it easy for them to find you. Is there any other tips that you would give to families on the spectrum before they are going to head out for a vacation?
Something that I've been encountering a lot recently is potential clients telling me that they just had a really bad experience the very first time that they traveled with their child, and it was just a really big mess, right? And I totally can sympathize. But I always say, like, my biggest, like, 100% number one tip is to start small. And you don't need me to start small, right? You can do that in your own hometown of, like, booking a hotel for a weekend or maybe just an evening, and, like, testing the waters out and not making it so scary for your child. So, like, no, don't go see grandma and grandpa, because that can be a very overwhelming experience, especially if you live far away from them, like I do. And I'm sure maybe you do too, Sarah, but it can be very overwhelming with strangers and sleeping in somebody's house. And it would be easier just to take a night or two in your own hometown, still being around things that you're familiar with, and then building off of that super short weekend away, just like bigger and longer trips. So I always say small, and then get bigger.
Wonderful advice. Like, absolutely wonderful, because, and that's how we should approach so many things with our kiddos, to help them build those skills available, for them to have. So it's been such a pleasure to have you on today and to connect with you. I'm so glad that I saw your podcast with I think it was with Kia, possibly, from the Autism Without Borders.
Yes.
And so I'm really glad that I reached out so that we could connect. And I look forward to referring lots of people to you.
Oh, thank you.
100%. And so we will make sure to get everything, all your information, like I said, a little promo going out and everything. So thank you so much for being with me today. And
thank you. It's been really fun.
Yeah, definitely. We'll keep in touch.
Perfect. Thank you.
The SJ Child Show, produced by SJ Childs LLC. Thanks to all my viewers and listeners for your continued love and support. And thank you to the guests of the SJ Child Show. It's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you to everyone who continues to support me. Go to my social media and let's build this community together through kindness, compassion, and education for others.